Hello and welcome to the Heisenware App Builder onboarding video. This is going to be a very long form onboarding where I'm going to explain many core features and functionalities of our app builder. And what we are going to build is a nice app, which you can see here, which is a machine dashboard visualizing a live temperature, a temperature history, with also a adjustable filter here to see temperature for the last 5 minutes, for example. It shows maintenance tickets for these machines. It allows creating new maintenance tickets from this form here. So I can say, for example, pollution, and I can say machine is very dirty and give it the priority number 3, for example, and report it by me, by Garrett, and add the ticket. Then we have a maintenance screen where you can see all the open tickets, or not just the open tickets, but also the tickets that are in progress or the tickets that are already resolved. And by the way, there is also an automatic ticket creation if the temperature is reaching a certain threshold. Now I'm going to show you what we are going to do in this video. First of all, we are going to build the front end. So we're setting up the page and the pages. Then we are going into the navigation. We enable and disable some views because we're going to build an app which is running on the mobile phone and also on the bigger screen like I'm using here. We're going to place all the widgets in text boxes. We're going to pre-configure some of the widgets as much as possible, and then we are going to adjust also the theme of the app. And the second part, we are going to define a data model. Here we are going to define 2 tables. First of all, a maintenance ticket table and then a user table. And the user table will be filled from a CSV file that we're going to upload, and then we're going to import the data from the CSV into the table. In the third part, we are going to integrate our data source. Our main data source will be a OPC UA server, which is running on my computer here. And it's simulating data that we're going to map onto another range. And then we're going to implement a connection check and read that variable and map it, as I said, and to connect it also to a widget. In the fourth part of the video, we are going to build the data logic. We are going to map the data in this part, and we're going to read the recorded data, analyze the recorded data, also build that chart that you have seen, and we're going to build an automatic maintenance ticket creation based on a certain threshold of that data. And then we are going to build the maintenance ticket handling. Therefore, we're going to build the form, or we're going to set options of the form automatically. And we're going to build the ticket creation flow, so to say. And in the end, we're going to make sure that all tickets are displayed on the first page, as you have seen, where you can see the open tickets, and on another page where we have the Kanban board in order to work with the tickets. And last but not least, we are going to deploy the app, and we're going to adjust if required, because this is a very, very important part of the whole process. Always a little bit of adjustment here and there. You will find these 6 chapters also in the chapter marks in the video description below, and you will find a full HWT, a Heisenware version tag file inside the video description or behind the link that is linking to our documentation, where you can download the app and also use it in your Heisenware account. Okay, I would say that's enough, and we're going to jump into the app manager. Here's our app 4. This is the one that I've already built, and we're going to build now the app builder onboarding app. All right, let's open the app builder. Let me close that tab here. So now we are in the app builder, and as I said, we're going to start with the front end. So first of all, we're setting up our pages. You can add new pages with a right click here on the page and create a new page, and we're also going to have a new subpage. Same, right click, add a subpage. And then we're going to call the first page data, and maybe use an icon here. And I also want a bar title or an app bar title. I'm going to show you in a second what happens. And the second page is called maintenance. And here we're going to use a screwdriver icon, and I will also name the page maintenance. So you see the navigation menu has appeared. Currently it's only bottom tabs, but we're going to choose top bar and bottom tabs. Once you do that, you also have this top bar showing what you've written here. As a next step, we are going to enable and disable some of the views. So as I said, our app is going to be a mobile phone app plus an app for a huge monitor. So we're going to disable the tablet view. We're going to disable the laptop view. We're going to enable the monitor view. So we only have the extra small, which is the phone, and the extra large, which is the monitor left. Good. Let's continue with placing some widgets and other front-end objects. So first of all, we're going to start with our beautiful Hedelius Acura 65 image here. So Hedelius is one of our clients, and we can use those images. I will place it here, and then I will take a text box to show how a text box works. You click a text box icon, and then you put it here, and we just call it Acura 65 and make it a bit bigger. There we go. And we will use a status lamp in order to indicate the connection state, but this is something we're going to have a look at later. Now I'm going to copy the text box. You can just use Control-C, Control-V as you're used to it from other software. And then I'm going to call the first section current temperature. And here a bit smaller. And here I will place a circular gauge, because later we are going to show the temperature in a circular gauge. With a right click, you can adjust to full width on the mobile screen. You can also toggle the tile view. I prefer no tile view, so I toggle it. And the next section is going to be the temperature history. Below this, we will put a form. So taking a form, because here we will later have this filter, which is allowing us to aggregate and filter the data for the temperature. Same here, full width, and then toggle tile view. And we're going to call this one range. So this is widget configuration, what you're seeing now. So you select the widget, like this. And then you can configure it here. Each widget has different configurations available. And for this one, I will select the select box, enter some data here. So for example, last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, and last 13 minutes, and last hour. So these are the 4 options I will give to our users to filter the data later. So, but that's it for now. And then let me increase the page height a little bit. So I will increase it to 2 times. So now you can scroll, because we need more space below. Because next I will put a chart. This is going to be the chart where we're going to visualize the temperature data. Same here, toggle tile view, full width. You don't have to do that, but you can. And now before I forget it, I will adjust the circular gauge a little bit, because I will have temperature data from 70 to 100 degrees. Increase the font size a little bit, maybe not that much. Yeah, this looks nice, from 70 to 100. And what we can also do is we can increase the frame width, so it's a bit bigger. And what's very nice is we could say, for example, or we could color each part of that circular gauge. For example, no, sorry, this is the green area. From 80 to 90 could be the orange area. And from 90 to 100, it's going to be a red area. There you go. Very nice circular gauge. And as I said, each widget has different configuration options. Circular gauge, you can use those. All right, the chart is something you can't see yet. We will see later how it looks like when it has some data in it. Now let me copy the text box again. and put it below the chart. And here I will just put open maintenance tickets. This is where we're going to visualize the open maintenance tickets. Make it a bit bigger. And we're going to visualize those in a data grid. So let me put a data grid here. It says keine Daten, which is no data in German. Full width for mobile, toggle tile view, same. And because I want to make them deletable later, I already pick allow deleting for that data grid. And you will later see why. And last but not least, I will add a button. So we have a trigger widget, which is a button. I will just add the button here and also make it a bit bigger. And this button will be called new maintenance ticket. And what I want to do with this button, I want to guide the user from that page to the actual page where they can create a new maintenance ticket. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the page, it has a drag handler too, as you can see, and put it onto that button. So quick demo, going to test mode, I click the button, and now I'm getting to the sub page. You can see it here. Show it again, scroll down, click, and we are on that sub page now. All right, good. This is going to be our first page, and as I said, we have pre-configured everything a little bit. And yeah, if we like, we could also add a logo here, a Heisenware logo maybe. This is way too big. Put the logo here, I don't know. So now it's really full. Yeah, we have the height of 2 page sizes or 2 pages basically, but we can increase, decrease all the time, but we need the 2 here. Let's move on with the maintenance page. Here we're going to have the Kanban board. So I'm going to pick a Kanban. It has some pre-configured stages, but I'm going to change those stages to open. This is going to be my first stage. Second one is in progress. And the last one I'm going to call resolved. So these are the resolved maintenance tickets. Completed would have been fine too, but just to show you how it works. Same here, I will add a button. So I can again copy and paste, put the button here. And with that button, I'm going to get to the subpage. Yeah, you know, the subpage doesn't appear in the navigation menu, so we need some other kind of navigation to get to it. That's already now, it's almost the second page. Later we're going to have some mappings here. So you will see later how these mappings work, but I will show you quickly. So the stage will be called status in my table later. The title will be issue category. You don't know yet what it means, but I'll show you later. The subtitle will be details, and the status key will be priority. And then we can do some status mapping. So when we have a priority 1, which is going to be high priority, we're going to make it very red. We have a priority 2, we're going to make it orange. For priority 3, we're going to make it a little lighter orange. For the 4, we're going to make it almost yellow. For the 5, we're going to make it greenish. So this is going to mean it's a ticket, it's important, but it's not a very high urgency. All right, you will see later how it works. Now our last page, here we're going to put a form. The form can be found here in input widgets as a form. By the way, you can use a form as an input, but also as a display widget, so it can show data. But typically it's used for inputting data by user. And this form will have the issue category as a field. And will be a select box. And the select box wants some options, so I can just copy and paste them. Pollution, unusual behavior, mechanical problem, electrical problem, software problem, or other. So this is going to be shown later when we open the select box. But our form will have additional fields. It will have, you can add additional fields with the plus here. Next one will be details. And here I'm going to use a text area because details can be a bit longer than just a regular string. The next field I'm going to use is the priority field. And here I want a select box also. Here I want a number box. And I would say the minimum number is 1 and the maximum number is 5. I can also add a prefix here just to show you. I can put urgency. And I can also put a help text where I can say, okay, 1 equals very urgent. 5 equals not urgent. So now the the prefix and the help text is shown here. And the last field is going to be the reported by field. So that's the person reporting the issue. I'm going to put a select or make it a select box also, and also show the drop-down button. Did I enable it here? Drop-down button here too. But the reported by field is something where I'm going to automatically set options based on a table that we're going to create in a second. The last thing we need is a button, which will be called add ticket. Add ticket is good. So now we have the first page, we have the second page, and we also have our subpage. And what I can do now is I can adjust everything for the bigger screen. So I'm switching to the bigger screen. As you can see, it's now all arranged somehow in the middle by default. But of course, I have so much more space here that I can actually arrange it differently. So put the machine here. I have to increase the page size or the page height in order to get everything what is down here. So in this case, I put the Heisenware over here. Core 65. The connection state, I put it here. Current temperature. And the temperature history, the range. Put this one here. This is the temperature history chart, or this is going to be the temperature history chart. Let's put it like this. Can make it very big on the bigger screen. And then we have to open maintenance tickets. And you see those help lines. Those are very, very cool and easy to use. And then we put the button somewhere here. So now you can see we have too much space. You can decrease the page height again. Maybe we fit it on one page even now. So this should fit on one page now. So no scrolling anymore. Let's go to the second page. The Kanban can be way bigger. That's the only thing we have on this page. Put the new maintenance ticket button here. You can even use mouse space. By the way, you can also use your keyboard in order to move the widgets, or you use the mouse, of course. So, and our last page is just this form. What I forgot is, let me go back. So this is happening all the time, but this is no problem. You can just do it later. I will copy this one. I'll put it here. And say add maintenance tickets. So maintenance tickets. So people actually know what this form is about. Very easy. And now let's go back to the bigger screen. We could use more space here, but we don't actually need to. And by the way, you could have put this form also here, just below the Kanban board or next to it. This is really, really up to you. You can arrange all the widgets and all the frontend as you like. But we're going to do it like this. And now I'm pretty happy. This is as much as I can do for now. The, let's say, final adjustments and the details, they will come later. What we can do now is we can adjust the theme, of the app. So currently it's our default theme, so it's greenish, and I will stick to green. So you just click here on theme editing, and then you pick a base theme. So there's 3. I'm going to use Fluent, and I'm going to use SaaS Lite. And this is like a pre-configured theme. However, you can also go ahead and adjust according to your very own company colors or whatever color you like. And you can change more. You can also change the border radius of the buttons and stuff like that. And you see it here in the preview, how it will look like. So I'm doing this now, but I leave everything else as it is. Important here, you click apply. You wait a second and then you can go back and go back to app editing. And yeah, now we have our Heisenware green in here, which is very similar to the default green, but of course you can use any color you like in here. But what you can see is we have a greater border radius now. This was the first chapter of front-end editing preparation. We are going to continue with the next one. So let me open the onboarding document again. So building front-end is done. All good. Now we're going to define a relational data model, the maintenance tickets table and the user table. So for that, what we're going to do, we're going into storage. We're going into relational database. What you can do here is create. You could instantiate your own database connection. If you have, for example, an SQL database, MySQL or MySQL, PostgreSQL, whatever it is, you could create an instance here of the relational database class, as we call it, and then work in your own database instance. However, there is already an instance coming with Heisenware. We have our own internal Postgres, but it works the same as if you connect to your own database or if you're using the internal Heisenware database. And of course, I'm using the internal Heisenware database in this case. So let's start. What we need is a defined table. Actually, we're going to need 2 defined tables because we're going to define 2 tables, and it's recommended to leave those functions here on the flow builder. These are functions we are not using during runtime. Later when the app is running, we don't need them anymore. We're just using them during build time. You will see the difference in a second. So I'm going to call it maintenance tickets. And the maintenance tickets, I'm copying from my other screen here. So this is why I'm looking to the left side. Will have these fields. And this is now important. This is always how you configure functions. The first, maybe let me delete this one again. This function, because it's the first function I'm showing, a function always has input arguments, in this case a name, fields, and options, a trigger, which is green, and an output in red. And the define table function, which you can find here in the functions library, as you've seen, I was probably a bit quick, has 3 input arguments. Other functions have just 1, or sometimes 0, sometimes 4. It very much depends on what the function is doing. This is our abstraction of real code. So when you enter some arguments here and you trigger the function in build time or during runtime, a certain operation, a function, will be triggered and do its job. And now let's start with the define table and the fields. You've got always some help here when you hover above the little icon. The fields will be the issue category, which will be a string. And by the way, this is YAML configuration. Easy. Details will be text. Priority will be an integer, so full numbers. And then reported by will be a string. And then we're going to have a status, which is also going to be a string. You can use other fields here. You can even use JSON in here, so you can have nested fields, etc. But this is a bit more advanced. So for now, this is what we need. And in options, you could enable the history tracking, so you could track changes in that table over time, but this is not what we need in this case. And to trigger it manually, we just click the return icon here, and you'll see the table is created for you, including all the fields that you put into the argument box here, plus an ID, which is a UUID, so a very unique ID of every single row, a created at timestamp and an updated at timestamp. So those will be added automatically for you. And the second table will be called users. And in here, we're going to have 3 fields, which is the user. It's also a string. It's going to be the name, the string, and a team. It's also going to be a string. And I'm going to create this table too. So now we're having two tables, maintenance tickets and users. Let's now fill the users table already. The maintenance tickets, not yet, but for the users, we're going to fill them right now, because what I want to show you is how our CSV import works. For that, I'm going to connectors, and here we have a file connector or file IO. And here we have a read CSV. So I'm taking the read CSV function. As you can see, it's very same structure as the define table function, but with other inputs. So this one wants a path to the file, and it also offers some options. Yeah. But those are optional. That's also written here in the help. And what I have already is I already have a CSV with all my users, and I've uploaded it here. Yeah, the same place where we have the images, the Heisenware logo, the Akura image. I've already uploaded a CSV with the users. And you can always upload with this icon. Just drag and drop a file here, or click and then search on your computer, on your file server. In this case, I've got already the user's CSV. And now I drag and drop the user's CSV onto this very first input argument. So the path is automatically taken for you. And now I can trigger this function also manually. And again, this is something we are only doing during build time, not during runtime. And you'll see we have 3 users in here. It's me. I'm in a team operations. It's John Doe. He's in team repair. And we have Jane Doe. She's in management. And now add those users to our table users. And for that, we're going back to the storage relational database, internal Postgres. And here we have a function called add rows. What we're going to do is we enter the table here. It expects a table. And we're taking the output of the read CSV and putting it onto the data argument of add rows. And now I have to trigger it again in order to make it follow the arrow and be in here. And with a manual trigger, I'm adding 3 rows. So you have to believe me, our users table now has 3 rows in it, and those rows are the users Garrett, Jane, and John. And this is basically it for our data model. What I can do now, it's always nice to put all of that in a section or group it. So you can click here to make it a group and just call it data model. Even though you don't need these functions anymore, right? Because it's done. Now the tables are defined, the CSV is read, and the rows have been added. However, it's always nice to come back to it and see, okay, how does my table look like? There's other ways to have a look at your table. For example, there is a get table schema function also. However, it's very much recommended to leave it like it is, put it into a section, make it small, and you are good to start with the next step. So what is the next step? Let me check the document here. So this is done, all tables defined, and users added. So let's have a look at integrate data source. As I said, we're going to download and start an OPC UA agent and then connect to an OPC UA server, which is running, or which I have on my computer. So here it is. This is the ProSys OPC UA simulation server. Let me start this one. And for those of you who don't know OPC UA, it's very much a industry standard for integrating the shop floor. Of course, we have OPC UA connectivity, but we have also connectivity and integrations to many, many other protocols. But now we're using OPC UA. So here's my OPC UA server, and it has several simulated data points. For example, a random. Which we are going, or random integer, which we not an integer, random number, which we are going to use later. And next will be a connection check to the OPC UA server, and then reading this random variable and connecting it to our circular gauge. Okay, let's get back to the app. So as I said, the first step to take is downloading, creating an agent. An agent is a little piece of software, an executable that you can run in your own environment, in your factory environment, which is able to connect to all your assets, for example, to the OPC UA server, and then build a bridge via MQTT-S, which is secured MQTT on port 8883 to your very own Heisenware account. And it can only connect to your Heisenware account. And the reason is because you build it inside your account. So you just click here, you select the connectors which are going to become part of your very own agent, and then you can start it, and then it will connect. So I want an OPC UA client, and I'm having a Windows machine, right? So the OPC UA server is running here on my Windows machine. I'm going to install the agent on my Windows machine. These could be on different machines too, right? So OPC UA server on another computer, another machine. They just have to be in the same network, obviously, in order to talk to each other. And then you just click submit. You can pick a prefix and stuff like that, but this is very advanced for fleet management and similar use cases. I just keep it simple. And now it takes a little moment. And the good news is I've got already an agent downloaded, and I've already set an alias for it. This is the agent here, OPC UA agent, and you can change the alias. So the original one will be called Edge Connect something, but you can put an alias so you can easier find them later. So I'm going to show you how it looks like. So there is the OPC UA agent here, and it's, as I said, an executable. And I just start this one, and the window has appeared here. And in here you can see it's connecting to my demo account. It's the account I'm currently working in via port 8883. And here in the functions library, you see that it has become green, this agent. I close it, and it will be gray. And I start again, and now it's green. So here it is. So this is a prerequisite. And now let's work with the agent. So first of all, we have to create an instance inside this OPC UA client class. So OPC UA client is the class running in our agent, and now we have to create an instance or an object in order to have a separate connection. And you can see already one instance here, process. Now we're going to create another one. Just call it Garrett OPC UA. You see it's appearing right below the process instance. And now I have created it. And again, this is something I'm doing during build time. So I don't have to create an instance again. So now I can work with this instance. However, again, I'm leaving the function here because this way I know what I have done. So, and I said I first want to initiate a connection. So this is why I'm taking the connection or the connect function. And this one expects an endpoint URL. Let me get back to the OPC UA server here. There's the endpoint URL. I copy it, put it here, copy and paste it. This OPC UA server doesn't expect any user identity or stuff like that. So I can simply connect, and now it's connected. In order to connect during runtime, I have to configure it to connect once on deploy. So when we deploy the app, we connect. And then we can take a isConnected function, which basically checks if we are connected. Well, we are connected currently. I could also put a disconnect function here, show what happens if we disconnect, and then do the isConnected. That's false. And we don't want to disconnect, so I'm going to delete this function again. And manually connect again, and now connect the output of isConnected to our frontend. So it's the first time we're connecting backend logic with our frontend. As you know, isConnected can become false or true. So now we need to configure the status lamp to show different colors on true and false. On true, we want to make it green. We have many different mappings here. I'm going to delete most of them and just leave the red one and put false here. So now it's red because the value is false. And the question is, how often do we do the connection check? I guess that every 10 seconds would be fine, but we can also do every 2 seconds. And this was again something new. So with a right click on the trigger, you can define an automatic periodic trigger of this function. So every 2 seconds, we will now check, is it connected or not? And starting test mode, see true, 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 because we are connected. As the next step, we're going to read one variable. So take the variable here, or the read variable. There's also monitor variable where you can subscribe to a value or to a node ID. In this case, we will read the variable, and the node ID is something we get from our OPC UA server. So we have the random here. I'm going to copy this one, close it, put it here. So here you can use a node ID or a valid browse path in order to read a variable. And as you can see, we're getting a random number, something between -2 and +2. I have observed this for some time. So, and I want to read this one every second. Once a second, I want to read a random number. So I'm polling every second from my own OPC UA server. And because something between -2 and 2 is not a very nice temperature value, I'm going to map it to another range. As is anyway just a simulation, we're going to simulate nicer data, let's say. And this is also a chance for me to show you our utilities. Utilities includes barcode generation, a counter, data processing. There's lots of different functions here that simulate data for you, right? So you can simulate any kind of data if you don't have your own data. And there's also data processing, and in here we have a map range function. Map range. And what we want to do, we want to map this value onto another range. So I'm connecting the value with the map range function, and now I'm taking the input and putting it onto the trigger. This is new. Again, another way to trigger a function is on input update. So whenever a value comes here, it's triggered. Now it gives you an error because the options are missing. And the options are not optional in this case. It requires some options. So we can say original min is -2, original max is 2, and new min is 70, and new max is 100. And now let me show you what happens in test mode. It's mapping the value onto another range. And now we have a nice temperature value. Again, it's just simulation. And now you know why my circular gauge has values from 70 to 100. It's because this value can be something between 70 and 100. And now we're connecting another output from the backend with the front end. And suddenly this guy here appears. We have to choose now which property of the widget we want to feed with the data in this case. And the circular gauge has a value, and it also has a sub value, right? You can visualize two values at the same time in the circular gauge, but I'm going to choose the value. Now it's connected, and you can hover here and you see the connection and everything. I'm going to test mode, and it works. Yeah. Crazy temperature jumps, but again, it's just simulation. And the last thing I'm going to do in this chapter is I'm adding a function extension. So with the plus here, you can add a function extension. There's modifiers, there's filters, things we're going to use later in the video. But for now, we're going to use a recorder. And what the recorder is doing, it's recording the data inside this output into our internal influx database. So here we have storage, and you have seen the relational database. However, there is also time series database. And it works the same way. You could create an instance in order to connect to your own influx database, or you just use the already existing instance, which is the internal influx database. And in order to feed data into that influx database, you use the recorder. And the recorder has two configurations. One is the retention policy. So you do a right click on the F and you pick, for example, 1 hour. So we're going to record data for 1 hour, and then we're going to overwrite it again. And we're going to call it onboarding temp. That's the name of our measurement. And when we go now into test mode, we're already recording the data. So that's a big step that we've reached now, and we can move on with the next chapter in our onboarding video. Actually, before we move on with the next chapter, let's again group all these functions, because this is somehow a logical unit, and we call it OPC UA integration and mapping. I think that's fine. and close it. So what's the next chapter? We have integrated the data source, we're reading the variable, connecting it to the circular gauge, map and record data. We have already done this one. Now we're going to read data and connect it to the chart and to the form, or use the form as the filter. We're going to analyze the recorded data, instantiate and implement a counter. So this is going to be a bit tricky and special, because you will see later why we need another counter. And we're going to do automatic maintenance ticket creation using the counter. It's a bit crazy, but I want to show you as many features as possible, as I told you. Let's start with reading data and connecting it to the chart. What we've done is we're recording the data here. So currently it's not recording because the app is not in test mode and it has not been deployed yet. So nothing is recording, but that's not a problem because we have already some data recorded as we've been in test mode already. To read the data, you could go here and pick a read function for the internal influx. So like this, drag and drop again. Or it's a shortcut, you click here on the recorder and then somewhere a read function appears, which is already pre-configured for you using the onboarding temp as the measurement argument and the age for the bucket argument. As we're going to use both anyway, I leave them here. What we want to do is we want to first of all connect the output of the read. We're reading from the Influx database with the chart. So nothing to show yet, but we could trigger it manually and you see beautiful visualization. However, it's blue. It should be green. Minor issue. But you can change the color like this. And again, the chart has so many options. You can make it a different kind of chart easily using all the configurations here, but we'll leave it as it is. Now let's get to the read function. It has, again, the bucket, the measurement, and it has a third input argument, which is options. These are optional, so you can just leave it and it's fine, it works, and it gets you all the data from the last hour. As you can see here, the start is the default -1 hour, so it will get you data from the last hour. But what we want to do now is we want to show data based on what the user is choosing here from our dropdown. Now it's a dropdown. There you go. First of all, what we need is we need to get this data into the backend. And that's another way around now. We're getting now from the front end data, that's something the user inputs, into the backend. So let's use a memory for that. So here we have some shortcuts for functions you typically use very often when building. So I'm taking the memory function, putting it here. And what the memory function does is it basically echoes its input. And I can show you how it works. So I connect the input now with the front end, not an output, an input. Again, I have to pick a property. I'm using form data. And now we'll pick something, last 30 minutes, and you'll see you'll receive an object. It's called range, and then it has last 30 minutes in here. Why it's called range? Because the field is called range. And it puts it directly into the output. So it's like a memory. Now, what we want to do is we want to use a modifier here and modify that data. Because last 30 minutes is something that the read function cannot understand. So that's why we have to modify the data. And I will just copy and paste a modifier that I have prepared. And you can use JSONata modifiers here or JavaScript expressions. I'm a big fan of JSONata. My co-founder Burkhard is a big fan of expressions. It's really up to you. Just one hint, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, all the chatbots, they can help you a lot creating those modifiers. And here's a modifier that I've already prepared. So it's putting the output of the function into a new object, which has the key start. Based on what the value was, it will put another value in there. So if the value was last 5 minutes, it will put -5 minutes, because -5m is something that read from InfluxDB will understand. This is one key in here, and the other key is every. And this is something I just put as a static value, 30 seconds. What does it mean? It will aggregate the data for every 30 seconds. So we don't see every data point, but we see an average of the last 30 seconds in our chart later. All right, so let me show you what happens if I put it on last 5 minutes. See, it says the range says last 5 minutes, but we're creating a new object called start with -5m and then in here we have 30s. And this is something the read function will understand. So that's why we just put it into the read function. So good. Again, this is a logical unit that we can put into a section or group. And we're going to call it visualize temperature data. And we close it. By the way, we can also close this one again. You see all these sections here, yeah? So very nice and clean, and you can move them as you like. And if you like this. Okay, the next chapter, or no, we are still in the same chapter, but we're going to build automatic maintenance ticket creation. So you may remember our maintenance tickets. And we can, of course, where is it here? We can enter them manually. But what I want to build and show you is how to automatically create a ticket based on a certain temperature threshold. Yeah, I guess that's a use case that's very useful in some environments. And I will just show you how you can implement that with Heisenware. What I will be using here is, again, the read function. The bucket age, I cannot remember how the measurement was called. Onboarding temp. Oh, wrong copy and paste. Onboarding temp. And here I will use the tail option again, tail 100. Tail 100 means give me the last 100 values. And we don't have 100 values yet, so it will give me just 68, I think. Yeah, 68. But it will give a maximum of 100, and it's always the last recorded 100 values. No aggregation, just the pure values that we've been recording. What we're going to do is we're going to use a modifier again. And again, I prefer JSON. Again, with a right click, you can switch. And we're going to see what the average of the values is that we are getting from here. So let me trigger it. It's a very, very, very easy JSON average function. It just gives me the average. I'm not sure, but I think I can even use it like this. Yeah, that works too. So it will give me the average of the value. But I didn't show you the raw data yet. So it has always a date and a value, right? That's the data that we've been recording somewhere here. Just as a reminder, here we are recording the data, always with a timestamp and the value. And here we are reading that data. And I'm using JSON to build an average of the last 100 values. And now what I want to do is I always want to increment a counter when a certain threshold is reached. This is a use case I just made up, but I think it's very nice to show you also the counter. Again, we are in utilities, and here we have also a counter. And the counter works similar to those integrations, because the counter is the class and we can build instances out of this class. So you can see there's already one instance, temp85. That's the counter I was using in the final app that I've already shown you in the very beginning. But now we're going to create a new counter. And we're going to call the counter onboarding. Again, you can add some options here, but we just want a counter which is called onboarding. And now it's here, and now the counter has 4 member functions. We call them member functions, so the functions that are part of a certain instance of a class. And there's increment, decrement, reset, and get count. I think that's very easy to understand in this case. What I'm going to do is I'm taking an increment function. I want to increment the counter. So show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reset it again. And so it starts at 0. Reset. Good. And I want to increment whenever this average of the last 100 values is higher than 86 degrees, right? We are talking about temperatures here. So actually we want a filter. The filter is it gives you a true or false based on if the expression in there is true or false. So I could say X above 86. And in here we're using JavaScript, and the X refers to this, always the box in front of it. So if this is above 86, it's true, and exactly 86 or below, it's basically a false. Yeah, and I can show you what happens if I change it to 80. It's true. Yeah. So, but I'm going to leave it at 86. And now what I'm doing is I'm connecting the filter to the increment trigger and say on filter true, because I can actually change the trigger event. So when the filter becomes true, I want to increment the counter. So if the value is above 86, then it becomes true, then we're going to increment. And we are going to set the trigger for this one here to 1 second also. So we're checking every second. Maybe every 2 seconds is fine, but let's leave it like this. And what we're doing afterwards is we are using getCount. GetCount is also part of the member functions of the counter. And we are getting the count whenever we're incrementing. So I'm connecting the output here to the trigger on output update. And then we use another filter here. And again, this is made up, but I just want to show you how cool this is and what you can build with it. So I put another one and say, okay, X above 10. And then I want a true or false, based on if it's above 10 or not. And now I can quickly show you how it works. So false, 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 false. Let me set it maybe down to 50 just to show you. So it will immediately start incrementing, right? And if we now have a counter above 10, it will turn true. There you go. So this is what I want to happen when it's above 86. So next step, now I'm taking an add row function. I'm going back to the relational database. You remember we want to automatically create tickets. And I want to create a ticket whenever the counter is above 10. So when 10 times in a row or 11 times in a row, the average temperature was higher than 86 degrees. So that's basically the logic when to create a ticket. And I want to create a ticket in the table maintenance tickets. And now the question is which data. So here we have to define basically the row, what goes into the table. And I again copy and paste. So we have the issue category, and I could just call it other. Details, temperature above threshold. Priority 3, because it's not super urgent, but it's also not urgent. Yeah. And it's reported by the automation, and the status of the ticket is going to be open. So it's a static ticket that we are creating here. And remember the created at, so the date will automatically be added to this one. So now I'm taking this filter, connecting it to add row. And again say when the filter is true, then add this ticket. So again, because it's not so easy to understand. The average of the last 100 measurements above 86, then start incrementing the counter. And if the counter is above 10, then create a ticket. So this is like the logic I'm using here. And once we are above 10, we want to reset now the counter, right? That's why we need to reset. And I just can use the output of add row and put it onto the reset trigger. So when the row was added, we are resetting the counter. And then in order to also set the get count back to 0, we are taking the output of get count and putting it into the trigger of get count. Taking the output of the reset, putting it onto get count. So now you will see what happens. Again, I put it to another lower number, to maybe to 50. So it's true. So now it has resetted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's wait a second. And now it's above 10. And now it will reset the counter. Yeah. And we have automatically created a ticket in our maintenance ticket table. You will see in a second. Let's get back to 86. So I know this was a bit complicated, but it's a very nice logic to automatically create maintenance tickets, but not all the time, but only if we really have an issue, right? So automatic ticket creation. From here, we can move on and build the maintenance ticket handling logic. Okay, set form options, reported by. Good. Add ticket from form, including merge objects. Display all open tickets in data grid and make them deletable. Display all tickets in Kanban. Okay, set form options, yeah. So as I said, let's move on to our form. The reported by should be automatically filled with the data in the users table. Yeah, so I'm opening the data model again. And I'm using a get table data now for it. So it gives you all the data inside tables, inside one table. So there's just 3 entries. And I want to show here the actual user. So I need again to modify the data. So I put, first of all, I increase the section size. I put a modifier, and this modifier is also already prepared. So it will put the user array, right? We have 3 users, maybe even more in the future, into the reported by key. So trigger again. What we get is a reported by, and then we get an array. And now I connect this modified output to the form, and we have to switch it to set options. So, and we do this, right, now we take the page, so the page is a reckoner 2, put it onto the trigger, which means when the page is loading, so now we load the page, see, it was triggered, then we are setting the options, and suddenly you have in our field reported by 3 options for the users. Very nice. So this is again something we leave here, and now we move on with an add row, because we have used add row here before to automatically create the tickets. Now we use add row to manually create tickets. So maintenance tickets, but we cannot simply connect the data. I mean, this, you could do this, right? Connect the data input to the form, but we actually want to add a status every time a ticket is created. So I'm using a memory again. Connect these, use the form data, and now again a modifier behind the memory, like this. So what does it do? It takes what's already there, so which is referred to with the $sign, so the object that we already have, and it will add another key with the value open to it. So that's how we automatically add the value open, or the status open to new tickets, right? So the user doesn't need to enter it. And now we take this guy and put it onto the data argument of add row. And we say, when someone clicks the button, then we want to trigger the add row. So when someone clicks the button, we want to add the row. This is, again, another way to trigger a function manually from Frontend. And now a little trick. You can also connect an output of a function to a form. And again, it offers many, many properties, and we want to call clear. So when the row was added, we want to clear the form. So let me show you how it works. Issue category, pollution, machine is very dirty again. Priority, let's make it a 4, it's not so urgent. Reported by, let's say John Doe. And see, here the object is like prepared with everything we have entered, plus the status open coming from the modifier here. And now we click the button, and now we have added a row with a user ID and an updated and reported at timestamp into the maintenance tickets table. And we have cleared the form afterwards. Okay, so now we have all the maintenance ticket creation. let's move on with visualizing the maintenance tickets. So we want to visualize open tickets here, and we want to visualize all tickets here in the Kanban. Let's move on with the open tickets. Yeah, we need again the get table data. And this time, maintenance tickets, not users. And we can define some options here. As I said, we want to show just open tickets. So we can use a filter and then use an array and say, for example, status is open. I have to write it like this. You can use not just filters in here, you can change the order of your get table data results and do many things. It's very, very powerful. And let me show you what we get out of it. All the issues or all the open tickets, and now we connect it to our data grid. Well, again, we have to set it to data, the data property. The question is, when do we trigger this one? So we do it again on page load. And what else? We do it whenever another row was added here from the automatic ticket creation. So I'm also taking this guy and connecting it here. So you see, you can also connect stuff out of a group into another group or into another function. So we're getting table data whenever a new automatic ticket was created or if someone loads the page. And you may remember that we have set this one to allow deleting. So that's why, let me show you in the bigger screen, we have here the little trash can icon. And as we have the trash can, the user can basically delete data from it. But then we have to make sure that the deletion also gets to the backend and there's actually a row deleted from it. So we need a delete row function. Delete row, there it is. So delete row. And then we put again the table name, maintenance tickets. And then it expects an ID, so it wants to know which row it should delete. And we can do it like this. We just connect it to the data grid, and then we pick on delete as the property. And then we connect the input to the trigger. And I'm going to show you what happens. To test mode. The delete, there appears also for the end user, there appears a dialog to make sure that we really want to delete it. You click yes, and then suddenly we get the UUID of that row into the backend, and we have this row deleted. So it's really gone. I can do get table data again. It's gone. Show you again. Next one gone. Good. That's our. So it's really gone. That's our data grid. And now we can do the final step and configure the Kanban board. And for that, we need again a get table data, which I put below this time. Get table data. I mean, I could have taken the very same get table data and connected to the Kanban also, but I have one different options for this one now. So here we filter only for open ones, but for this get table data, we just want all the data, not just the open ones. And we want another option. We want the order to be priority, and then we want to descending. So to have the highest priority at the very top, right? So as you remember, we have different priorities for all our tickets. So we want to have the highest priority on top. And we are loading this one also on page load. We are again taking the page, putting it onto the trigger. And now we are connecting it. So immediately it appears. The thing is, you can now change the stage easily. By the way, I'll show you one more thing. As you remember, we have done the mappings here. Yeah? So we have done status as the stage key. Yeah? Status is open, in progress, resolved. We have used as a title key, the issue category. That's why it says pollution here. Subtitle is the details, and the status key is the color. You may remember, and this one is a 4 of priority, and so it's yellow. When we put another one, which is higher priority, it will have another color. I'm going to show you in a second. But the other thing I wanted to show you is, when you change now the stage, it's nice, it's in the front end, but when you reload the data again, it jumps back to the open stage because you haven't actually changed the stage in the data. It's just front-end action. So what you need is now the update row function. Very similar to the delete row here, which we needed to delete entries. We now want to update or change row. You can use both. But I think we will use update here. The update row, once again, a table name, which is again maintenance tickets, and then we connect simply the Kanban to the data. Then we pick on card change. So when someone is changing the card or the card position, then we want to receive data. So I'm going to show you. See, we have now received, machine is very dirty again from John Doe. It's now in progress. When I put it onto resolved, it will switch to resolved. However, it's still not updated in the database. For that, we would need to trigger it. And when we now load here, it stays here. Oh, we got an automatic ticket in the meantime. Very nice. Okay, and here I also connect the input to the trigger. So whenever someone changes the card, it will also update it in the database. And let me check. I believe that's it. So this is our last section. How did we call it? Build maintenance ticket hand. Yeah, okay, just call it. Group it and call it maintenance ticket handling. All right. And let me also make this one smaller. So it's 5 nice sections. And the next or the last step to do is actually deploy the whole thing. So I'm going to deploy now. Just one click here, you click deploy. Now the app is built, and you could, with your smartphone, scan the QR code, which I will be doing and show you. So here's our app. Hope you can see it. And I will also open it here on the computer on the bigger screen, so it's even easier to see. Yeah, it looks wild, but now let's switch the range to last 5 minutes. Last 10 minutes. And remember, this is an aggregation. This is why there is some data missing. We are aggregating data, and the app was not running all the time. Now it's running because it's deployed. Before that, it was just running when it was in test mode. So we have already 4 automatic tickets created, which we will also see in our Kanban board. We can move them, and then they will disappear here because we are only showing the open tickets in here. And we can also create a new maintenance ticket. Electrical problems, I don't know, cables, look, broken, whatever I have. Priority is very urgent now, reported by me. And I say a ticket. Let's check the Kanban board. There is electrical problem and it's red. So this is really, really, really urgent. And now I can move it. But what I see is that this was not, let me check again. So it's actually at the bottom. So I wanted to have it at the top, the highest priority. I may have an issue here with the order. Let me see if we can fix that. Get table data, order, priority, descending. Let's switch to ascending. Oh, yeah, now it's on top. Okay, let's deploy again and get back to our app. So you see it's loading, and hopefully this time the highest priority tickets are at the very top. There you go. So this was basically the adjustments, which are actually very, very important in this case. But yeah, the rest looks fine. The app works. We have our tickets here. We have live data. We have all the logos in there. And we could even install the app as it's a PWA. And there you go. It looks like this without all the browser stuff. Full app. And we can move the tickets. They stay there. Resolved, resolved, resolved. Go back to the first page. No more tickets there. That is it. I hope this onboarding video helps you in working with Heisenware. Of course, it's still not everything, but I guess it gives you a good idea of how Heisenware works, how main features are working, and what you can do with it. However, there's so much more to explore, and we will have more videos with more detailed explanations of other features. And of course, you can always check the docs at docs.heisenware.com and also reach out to us. Just use hello@heisenware.com or garrett@heisenware.com to get right to me. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, hope to talk soon. Bye.